T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Launch Sequence podcast in a new place. It's not completely put together. It's just a white wall here and a little bit of a whiteboard, and it's all flipped because I'm mirrored. But if you're watching on video, this is the first time you're seeing the place that we have finally moved into in the US. So get used to it. But besides that, we're here to talk about Star Citizen, and we've got an exciting episode. We're going to talk about the narratives that are going on, supply or die, save Pyro, save Stanton, save everything, the glitches and what they've been causing, how these missions have been going, the features and updates we're going to see, and if this new strategy that CIG has in 2025 is working. And with me today is MrKraken, infographic extraordinaire and Star Citizen unpaid tester. Thank you for joining me. How you doing?
Hello there. I'm good. Thank you very much. I mean, aren't we all unpaid testers at this point?
Yes, we are. But you put out some, so he does infographics, also does YouTube. You put out some YouTube videos that I think are really good at showing kind of what's specifically not working, rather than somebody like myself who would just be like, ooh, fun features. And yeah, that's very helpful.
Thank you, man. Well, that's the whole point of that, is just people who have got a bug are irritated. They just want to find out what the workaround is.
Yeah.
That's what that's there for.
YouTube is a teacher. And it just depends on who's using it, what needs to be taught. But we've got 4.0.2 coming out for Star Citizen like hours ago. And I jumped in for a little bit of it. I did more the mining side of it. For anybody who doesn't know what's going on, this is like the first event where we're getting a pretty large variety of ways to tackle objectives, both combat focused, non-combative focused, in Pyro, in Stanton, through mining, through like it's actually pretty decent. But I want to talk with you first about it as like a full picture, because I know you've got plenty to say, and you just speed ran it in like the last hour. So let's start out by just jumping into like what's going on in Star Citizen right now. What is this supply or die event?
So the supply or die is the continuation of Save Stanton, which is the start of the whole story for this year. So chapter 1 was Save Stanton, chapter 2 was Fight for Pyro, chapter 3 is Supply or Die. A lot of people keep on getting confused by this because they think it's another phase or they think it's the same event. And now that Fight for Pyro is extending into 402, that might confuse people even more thinking about the phases. Just accept that it's going to happen. People in SC testing chat, people are going to be confused.
It's just another product of the confusing nature of Star Citizen. Is like, because the game struggles so much, they now have to delay a part that was supposed to be timed.
They didn't have to, but thank God they did. Because we have had events before where they haven't. We have had others where they have extended it across patches. And I am so glad they did this time, because there's FOMO rewards. And we'll probably come to that in a bit. Yeah,
we'll definitely get to that. I think there's a lot of people who are grateful about it, just from what I've seen in chat during the stream and conversation on Discord. Is that a Fix-It mug?
It is a Fix-It mug. It's my Fix-It engineer mug.
Oh my God, I love it. Between what I've been seeing people see in different places, it's definitely loved that they've done this, and I think it's these kinds of small decisions that they should keep going on. It's like, what was the one that they did? They made
initiative?
No. Like in the last few months, they made like a small decision that really made people happy that they didn't need to do. I think it was, I can't remember what it is. And that maybe doesn't say a lot about the decision itself and how important it was. But
was it one of the phases of Save Stanton?
No, I think it was like they didn't wipe. Maybe it was like beginning of January when they were going to wipe and didn't, or something. I don't know. I'm drawing a complete brain fart right now. But it was beginning of January this year. They did something that everybody's like, oh, we didn't really expect that, but they did it. This was a good call on their part. And I think it also falls in line with like the preview that they did for 4.0. So they're kind of making these small decisions that I think are helping to build back some.
Starless Oblivion's got it in your members chat. Cancelled the free flight.
Yes, that was it. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so these little things that don't make a huge difference, but ultimately, like, nobody who's watching Star Citizen from the outside is going to be like, oh wow, they canceled their free flight. Wow, this company.
That's it.
But the
Ignorance is
Star
bliss.
Citizen players are like, oh, this is cool. Thank you for doing this for us. And I think they need to keep doing more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that was unprecedented. We don't think we've ever had a free flight cancelled before.
No. And
So that said a lot.
yeah. And
And went a long way.
extending Fight for Pyro this next month is probably another good call. So it is this narrative event that has so far been broken up into 3 different points. Does that mean that people who didn't do those first 2 shouldn't try Supply or Die?
And this is where we come to the point where Supply or Die is the one you should do because it's not linked to the other 2. So obviously with Save Stanton, you had the Ardor repeaters for completing that, but it was also linked to Fight for Pyro, where you got the Ripper SMG, but you also got the paints for completing both of those chapters. That was a bit because they were linked, but nobody knew what they were actually getting for doing both of them together. So they didn't know whether it was going to be worth it because everything was redacted during chapter 1.
Right.
For what you were going to get for doing the 2 chapters. Obviously, for the crazy of us willing to sift through countless hours of bugs, we still tried to do it. And some who did that still didn't get awarded the things. That's a whole different story.
Oh, God, yeah.
But honestly, Supply or Die is... I don't want to say it's PvE or PvP or, it's just an accessible, let's go with accessible, thing for some lovely paints and a shotgun and a commemorative display. The paints, I've literally just rushed back to Area 18 to check them out myself, and then we started talking. But I would say do it. You can do it in Stanton, which is what I did with my 2 regular wingmen, and we managed to do it in an hour.
So what did you do in Stanton?
So the Stanton side, you can collect corundum and copper and take it to Pyro Gateway Station. So if you've got a caterpillar, because Drake is the best, yeah, I'm one of those guys. You can fit everything you need for all of the small contracts needed to get all 3 sets of rewards, which is 16 SCU containers, times 12 for both copper and corundum. Just take the small missions, the small contracts, send them down, bring the stuff back up, send them down, you're done.
Okay. So
no stress, no worried about being ganked or anything like that.
So you went and bought the commodities.
Yep,
and then turned them in.
60,000 for each of them. That was it. 60,000 for each, and away you go.
And you're focused on completing the goal, right? Completing this mission. So you're not looking for money.
During testing.
So you can make a loss, and it wouldn't really matter.
Oh, but it definitely wasn't a loss.
Okay. So I think that's interesting because these missions could be a big part of getting people to start thinking and doing this kind of stuff. I didn't try to go buy the commodities. I tried to mine them. So we were doing the same thing, 2 different ways.
Saw that on your stream just before we started.
Yeah, did you see how terrible I was doing?
I didn't, because I was rushing. Because I was thinking either we're going to be on or we're not, or something's going on. So I was just trying to get finished and wrapped up. But
yeah, I was all mad. I missed out the time.
All things are viable, and that's the best part about it. If you want that high group energy going for the Detatrine and making loads of profit for lots of risk, I believe from the ISC yesterday, 10 or more people are suitable for large contracts. So if you've got a group of 10, you're going for the large contracts, that's all you. So that's for the fighters. Then you can either mine, you can salvage, or you can buy the commodities. And you can do it in either Pyro or Stanton for the commodity side of it. And I really, really enjoy that. When I first saw it on PTU, when obviously the Vicati patch dropped, and I went, oh my, we've actually got options. And that is the best thing about this set of contracts. It's an event, yes, but it's not heavily laden. There's not much to read, but I would say read the contracts, read the journal,
Mm-hmm.
look for any data pads anywhere.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. I didn't know about the data pad controversy until just
Everybody
today.
knew about the data pads, but they were just objects on the floor. You couldn't pick them up; they were bugged. But yeah, you said we'll get to that.
I see. Okay. Yeah, so I love that there is choice to these missions. This is kind of starting to show the side of Star Citizen that I feel, at least for myself, has been anticipated for years. The freedom of choice of how to tackle something that anybody can do, and you kind of put your party together for that. If I want to go salvaging in Pyro, I bring an escort with me, and then I can complete that mission. If I want to do the same thing in Stanton, I don't have to, but I'm turning it into the jump point instead of going straight to the source.
Yeah,
That's beautiful stuff. I want to go back to the rewards that you were mentioning with the different
Yeah.
waves, though. You said that in order to get certain rewards, you had to complete the first 2 phases. But with this one, you can just do this and get the reward, right?
yeah. So it's a chapter of the overarching story throughout the year, which they said about being in the this year. We're going to have the A and B story. So we're in the A story at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and we're in chapter 3 of it. You don't need to have done chapter 1 and chapter 2, so you don't need to have done Save Stanton or Fight for Pyro to get the rewards from this one. And I really, really hope they don't, at the end of the year, go, everybody who completed all of the chapters in this story gets this. That would be absolutely horrific. Please, please don't do that.
Well, there is a lot of unhappiness about the
Yeah.
way that reward. I think it's very confusing. I'll definitely open up by saying there's clearly need for refining the way that this stuff's communicated, because there is just nobody knew how to get what rewards, or I guess everybody knew somewhat, but there's just a lot of confusion as to where rewards would come from. But there's also the conversation of the FOMO that you mentioned, and how you should get rewards based on if you've been there or not. And I think there is a subset of people who would say, why can't we get those rewards at the end of the year if we showed up for that? What is your response to that?
So with the FOMO side of it, my headcanon and hopium is that the reason that they've added non-monetary FOMO rewards, and that's the most important point, non-monetary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a FOMO sale of you only get while this is on to buy this from the store.
Yeah, you've earned the right to buy.
Yeah, the earn the right to buy thing is that's a whole other conversation. But it's free. It's non-monetary FOMO, and I get it. It's a you had to be there thing. They want to encourage people to stay on the PU playing so they can gather the data, the concurrency data, and just filling up the persistence again. Because if you think about it, we had a full persistence wipe at 4.0.
Yeah.
Everything went away. So all of that time since it was 3.18 that we had the start of long-term persistence, wasn't it?
No, it was before. Well, yeah, with the
long-term,
PES.
yeah, the long-term.
Yeah. And then we had, I think, one more wipe in between then and now.
I couldn't remember whether
it
there
wasn't
was
a
or
ship
not.
wipe. I think it was just reputation and wallet maybe last year. Yeah.
But the items have stayed because they've been filling up the database nicely.
Yeah.
So I think, again, this is my own headcanon of why they're doing it, is to encourage people to keep playing and stay on the PU, gathering more and more things, fill up the databases, keep server meshing going so they can see what's happening in all the different DGSs. I get that. But at the same time, the bug side of it, and that's what everybody's been saying, like in SE testing chat, when they're saying, well, why are we running this event? Are they extending this one into 402? I didn't get a chance to do Save Stanton, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it is horrible. I would hate to be in that position, and I have been. With the CDF armor from Zenithreat, I never got awarded it. So I've been there with free items for doing things, but it is what it is. It's almost like it's a reward for putting up with the bugs. The items are the carrot, the bugs are the stick, as someone said earlier.
Dude, the stick is so violent. I am not going to fault anybody for being annoyed that they couldn't get a reward because of the bugs, because it is genuinely like you could do something so many times and then it still doesn't work. And I know this is the definition of insanity, but we're all insane for being here, okay? We've accepted that. We want the insanity to still be a bit rewarding, and I understand when you do something 40 times and you don't get the reward and it's very anger inducing. But I'm like, I want to get stuff that I had to be there to get. It's exciting.
But, I mean, on that note, CIG support should honor anybody that can evidence that they had either the journal evidence saying this has all been things, or if something hasn't been attributed.
Yeah.
Screenshot of the journal saying you're at tier 3, or whatever completion needs to be, or just an evidence of them handing in and getting the pop-up on the screen, even if it hasn't updated the journal. Just always leave a replay running, and if you finish something, get that evidence so you can go, look, I did it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I learned my lesson the hard way after that Xena threat, and I didn't get the CDF armor.
I've had a couple of instances where there was like just a small glitch that blocked me from getting some kind of in-game reward, and I was like, okay, whatever. I just backspace or something and forget about it. So the FOMO, going back to that, because I think this is a big topic and it will be continuing this year. Do you feel like when they have these rewards in game now, they should be things that can still get acquired some other way in game? Do you think this is like an event that maybe should run in a year or two and there should be a repeat that people can use to earn it? How can people go about getting the things other people are getting? Or do you think that it should just be like flat out, sorry, that's not available anymore unless you steal it?
I mean, stealing is always an option.
It is.
See, I don't think they should be gone forever, but I also don't think that the event should run again. Because if they're determined on the PU being a sandbox that shifts and we go, right, we've had this story, we're on to the next one. Like basically any other games, like Destiny, the story keeps going on.
Yeah.
And yes, you can go back and replay it in Destiny, but I know I'm mixing that up a bit, muddy in the water.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff that you can't do in between, so you can do certain key points, but the in-between seasons and things like that, they carry on with the story that you can't do if you weren't in that season. And I know it's starting to sound horribly like CIG might shift from subscription to seasonal models, and that's something I've been considering when I've been doing critical views of the subscriber model right now.
Oh.
But the FOMO side, I do think there should be other ways for people to get it. Maybe not immediately, but much like I think it was Zach Priest said about the PARC.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, in 402, if you didn't know, they are in contested zones. So you can get the PARC, so you don't have to have your gear fear anymore necessarily.
Yeah.
And eventually they will filter out into other loot pools, but because it's prestige item, and I imagine the same would apply for the event rewards, that they might eventually make them available, but because they haven't already stated it, that might cause more people to get annoyed who were there at the time, earned it, and then go, well, you didn't say this at the time, I wouldn't have bothered with all the bugs otherwise.
Right.
So it's an awkward one. Now that they've started, maybe if it gets to the next chapter and they say, from now on, these will be available in, 1 year, randomly, low chance in the loot pool, like a lot of the stuff is now from subscriber stuff. Just a lower drop rate, in a box, in a hard-to-reach area, you've got a chance of getting this or that. Maybe.
Yeah. I think as long as they stay contextual with it, like I don't want to find some spectacularly colored attritions in a loot box in like some bunker and I don't know, so like an R-Corp sewer. So I do think it would be cool if they found us ways to be able to still access them, but definitely in ways that are still rewarding people for going out of their way to do that kind of thing.
And obviously not hanger attributed. That's what I would probably lean towards.
Mm-hmm.
So the hanger attributed is for doing the event.
Yeah.
And then loot pool in a year's time or whatever arbitrary amount of time. But it's still got to be earned.
Kind of follows the theme of other parts of this game too. Like I think the Hornet Mark 1 is probably a good example. You just can't get that ship anymore. Yeah. But we know that there will be ways to get it in game. The more they can do that with stuff, as long as it's all available to get in game, it doesn't have to be purchasable, right? Yeah. It can just be found in Pyro. Yeah, like you said with the P8.
Yeah. I've still got my F7 with the Killian Blue. That's the only reason I kept my original F7. That Killian Blue Invictus paint.
Oh man. What is that? 2019?
Now Blue? You're asking. I'm not sure. Oh no. It was the so everybody who still had an F7 Mark 1 when they released the Mark 2, everybody who still had an F7 or any of the variants in their hanger got the Killian Blue paint. Killian Blue paint. But it was part of my package, so I was like, okay. That's never getting upgraded. That's staying as it is. Yeah. It looks so good. But digressing,
and again,
sorry.
I think that there are varying levels of FOMO to this game. Some of them are bad because it's like you bought, I don't know. Okay. I won't say it's bad. All right. Let me just go in at this from a neutral perspective. Some of it's kind of wild because you could get per se a $800 ship for $250 because you happen to be there at that time. Yeah. Some of it is not that big a deal. Like you got a Spectrum badge because you backed the game before 2 million people. Like there's so many different levels of FOMO, and I think some of them are going to rub people the wrong way. But if there's any bit of FOMO, I think there should be. It should be that of being in game, right? Not of spending real money or anything like that.
No, absolutely. The whole money FOMO thing, that's a whole subreddit of its own. But anything that's earned in game, it's one of those things. Most games do it these days. It's not that big of a deal for a fully released game because I know exactly what the comments are going to start being if we don't mention it. Yeah. It's one of those things. We're in alpha, but they need people on and testing. How do you encourage people on to deal with all of these bugs?
Yep.
It's giving them FOMO.
Yeah, and that brings us back to the focus of this year, which is they need to get this project to become a game that people can play reliably. Do you feel like they've adequately and sufficiently laid out this strategy for the year and like they're doing a good job of following along at it so far?
So the strategy of the year of stability, we're going to focus on this, that, and the other. I know a lot of people will say, well, no, they're just marching to the beat of marketing's drum as they always do. But at the end of the day, that's always going to happen. It's what they do around that. Like first originally delaying the free fly just to bring that back in and then cancelling it. Originally it was delayed, then it was cancelled. And you know that someone was pushing back saying, no, we need the free fly. We need the free fly. We need all those free people coming in. That's always going to happen. They've got schedules for marketing. They've got schedules for development. They've got schedules for the entire project. And we know that they don't always necessarily meet those schedules. 2 years. Oh, sorry. But it's one of those things. They cancelled the free flight, the hotfix stuff. Benoit coming into SC testing chat a couple of weekends ago and being right on top of everything when no one else was around at the time. He popped in on the weekend, was like, right, mobilizing the troops, try and get the servers stabilized. They did the reset. They're doing the maintenance things. So it's the most activity at trying to get things sorted out. And the fact that the patch notes are now listed with potential fix, they're being honest. They're not going, fix this, fix that. They're saying potentially. So it's the words and actions are kind of matching. And with the storyline stuff, I mean, all we've got so far, we're only on chapter 3, second one of this year. from January. It's playing well insofar as the narrative. Not so much with the elevators and all the other bugs, but honestly, if those bugs weren't there, I think a lot more people would enjoy the events because they're not too time intensive when you take away the time spent working around bugs.
Yeah.
And these things don't get fixed quickly. They never do. I know I'm going to say it is what it is quite a lot, but it is what it is.
People are like, yes, Kraken, yes, put it on a shirt. What
That's an
about
idea, right? Make a note.
there are some big things though that I think it's kind of almost to the point now where CIG can fix whatever they want, but if they don't fix like these 5 things, people don't really notice that much. So do you think that it's going to matter much if they're not getting like missions working correctly or elevators not killing people and disappearing?
So my biggest problem with the whole coming over to 4.0 server meshing is the fact that, and we said this, or I said this, I can't remember now, when we did the group podcast, the basics aren't in the game. We haven't got the delivery missions, we haven't got the search and investigation missions, and we haven't got those until now. The 890 jump has just come back in.
Yeah.
But we haven't got the reclaimer missions out in space, the black kite, things like that. That really
oh man,
rubs
we don't
me
have
the wrong
black
way.
kite mission. That's such a
Oh.
new mission.
Because they weren't. I mean, it is new, but it's not.
Yeah,
In
it's
a,
not
in a
server
way.
meshing new.
Yeah. And I even got a response from Spectre, who is one of the main guys bringing the older missions back through. Well, because obviously, as everybody knows, they can't just do one thing. You've got to have the team split. So there are people working on the new narrative, and there are people working on the old missions, getting them back up and bringing them in. And at the start of the patch cycle in PTU for 402, box missions were back, and they were in Pyro, and they were scary. Especially going to a Zenith threat location and stealing supplies from them when they've got the new Pyro turrets.
Oh my gosh, those turrets are gnarly.
The ballistic turrets are very, very ouch. But those missions were back. But box missions being box missions, there were problems. So they've pulled them away like they did with the engineering
The handyman stuff.
pipe repair. Yeah.
That pains me that that's not in right now, man.
I was hoping that was going to come back in this because they listed the issue cancel report as fixed on that. So I was like, yay, get the handyman thing in. But it didn't arrive. So
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that might be 4.1. And they're just leaving that for a feature update.
Yeah. So missions are a real big pain point, and it's not like that's new. They've always been a pain point, but now we have less missions, which is actually something that happened with 3.0 when 3.0 got updated too. But that was like we also saw more content added than we lost, I think. This one, it actually does feel like, because it's not just in Stanton, it's spread between 2 systems, it does kind of feel like we lost more than we gained in terms of content. Because we're also, you mentioned the handyman missions, charge and drain didn't end up getting added with that. We lost the Covalix investigation mission, I found out today.
Oh, Gundo, yeah. I forgot all about Gundo.
It's
sorry.
like actually the best contract in the whole game.
Oh,
And-
so atmospheric.
and it's gone. And it sucks because that's all the way from before 3.0. Like that's a staple. So I hope they bring that back. But
It will be coming back. I have had confirmation from Elliot that that will be coming back.
okay, I'm going to go a step further then and ask, does that mean that the rest of the investigations that we were told about in 2021 will be joining it?
I don't know. He went kind of vague when he replied to my tweet a couple of weeks ago. Because someone hijacked my tweet. I didn't set it to tagged only.
Okay.
So they've got everything on the list, as they've said on Spectrum as well.
Yeah.
And I just really hope that list doesn't end up trimming anything, because if you think about it, but we know they've gone on a metric-based prioritization for the missions. It's for bringing all of the old ones back, because people were playing all of these, but they weren't playing these. So those ones down the bottom are going to take longer. But a lot of the reason people weren't playing those is for one of the reasons why I'm not 100% happy with the whole year of narrative story. Don't know whether you wanted to segue to that or whether you wanted to wrap up one bit before we move on.
Give it a go. Give it a go. It's all kind of related.
The in-person contracts, the Vaughn missions,
Yes.
Twitch, and things like that, they've always been a bit obscure. Yes, you got the little pop-up and you got the new contract in your Moby saying, come and meet me. Those need to be more of a draw. They need to be Cyberpunk 2077, up in the top left corner, you getting a phone call on your Moby, their face appearing saying, I've got some work for you. Come and meet me if you're interested.
Yeah.
That, in a game, we're playing a game. We're not playing a tabletop RPG. We're playing one of the prettiest computer games ever. Visuals is what we need.
And to put that into perspective, folks, it's not just him saying that. AMD put Star Citizen on their official GPU advertisement, mentioned by the CEO. Like literally, he went out on stage and said, "Our GPU will get you 2.9 times better frames than Star Citizen." Why is AMD doing this? I don't know, but clearly they do think it at least looks good.
It is ridiculously pretty. Everybody can admit, Matt, despite the bugs, it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But
So, like,
why would you want, or why would you keep people reading text when you could have life?
please.
Please, yes, very much please.
Yeah.
Especially we've now got a redacted on the release view for a new mission giver.
Who do you
Please
think
don't
that
just be
is?
text based.
Who do you think? Do you think it's one of the old ones that they didn't get to release, or you think it's somebody brand new?
Given everything else on that release view, I think we might have in some way met this person before.
Okay.
Maybe in, a cinema of conflict.
I kind of wonder. This is my cinema of conflict. Wait, was there a voice line in Theaters of War?
It
Who was it?
in, I can't remember the name now, and I did mean to look this up because I thought we might have a little bit of a chat about the new mission giver.
Okay,
and the new content being part of that.
yeah.
But I saw it, and I saw the Hathor logo. I went, oh, we're getting Theaters of War in the PU. Wonderful.
I see. I didn't know that's where Hathor was mostly involved in Star Citizen.
Somewhere
Say that again.
they've got to use the asset somewhere.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's good that they're making use of it, but I do wonder, is this going to be a mission giver? Like, what are they based around? Mining, you think?
So it's the laser extraction, isn't it? The station up in orbit is the giant laser.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's mining related, keeping the laser powered, things like that. Or maybe it's just a really unfortunate mission giver who just gets to go, hey, you're this guy.
Take
Do
this
for me.
box somewhere. I'm from Hathor. Take this box to Hurston. Like, okay, why do I need to go to Hathor for that? Yeah, I hope I hope they're in depth.
There's got to be some life to it. It can't just be text-based anymore. And this whole thing that came up a couple of weeks ago about CIG partnering or working with
11 Labs.
11 Labs, that's the one. As much as I'm not a massive fan, and I quite often refer to it as slop, with AI, as long as the original voice artists are being fairly compensated, I say have at it. But
Star Citizen's hurting for voice lines. I think this
Very
has
much
become
so.
this has like really quickly become very obvious because now the AI works and we've started to see some level of interactivity, and so it's just very stark contrast of, okay, we don't need to read this stuff anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you're in Pyro stations and you're getting that living, breathing world thing, that sort of stuff is still new to us because we haven't heard the same voice lines for years.
Yeah.
That's still new, so it's still fresh, but they're still repetitive voice lines. So eventually, you're not going to care. Although whenever Jared speaks in the weapon shop in Pyro, I can't help but listen. He's
You
got
always
some of the
drop
most
what you're doing.
interesting voice lines.
Yeah, I appreciate that they use the devs for that, and I look forward to seeing how much they can improve just the overall atmosphere. Because, like you said, a game like Cyberpunk, or I think one of the newest examples people are probably going to start pointing to more now is Kingdom Come Deliverance, can really make it feel like you're in this world, and that's what they are all about in Star Citizen, right? Immersion is like the number one used word in this game's history, besides maybe soon.
This is why we have to manually move boxes around, so we're immersed in the universe.
Yeah. So
give us speaking people.
It's going to be great when that happens, and we've got other mission givers too. We've got Clovis Darnley, Konstantin Hurston, Ruto, Miles Eckhart, Tisha Pacheco. Are there any others that were in Stanton?
I think we're missing one. Are we missing one?
I know Recco Battaglia was at Levski.
Yeah.
Was there?
So
Vaughn.
soon, TM.
Vaughn.
Vaughn, yes,
Vaughn
of
is
course.
just, he's literally just text.
Everyone's favorite at the minute.
Yeah, that's fair. It just goes to show you don't have to have a pretty face. But all of them they could all have working narrative missions with voice acting. Do you think that it would have been better effort for CIG to have put the time into making all of those work and building narrative mission lines there, or stick to the narrative stuff they're doing for the whole game right now?
I think if we were talking a few years ago and they were looking at the decision of whether to make the actual people a thing or do the storyline stuff, I would have said, do the people. Because there wasn't lots more to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you could grab people with a little picture-in-picture, got a job for you. But now, I honestly think that this is the right thing to do to get people I want to emotionally invested, like people aren't emotionally invested in Star Citizen whatsoever. But invested, not necessarily in the storylines, but that's, again, down to the bugs. Loads of people will just not read. My day job is analyzing conversations between humans and bots.
Oh boy.
I know people don't read. So it's one of those things.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Can we put this aside just for a cool second? What do you do? You analyze so when people are using customer service bots?
Yeah. So I do the MI for those sorts of things and do the training data for the large language models and all of that jazz, based on what happens with real experiences with real people talking to bots.
Man, I didn't know you guys were reading that stuff. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. I've got some choice keywords that I search every now and again.
Do you see the frustration?
Yeah, we feel it as well. We've got to do the UAT on it.
Oh my God. I'm just the amount of bad words that people must throw at these bots. Just let me talk to someone.
I'm the technical side. I'm the guy that identifies that you can't talk to a human and sorts it out.
Mm-hmm.
And makes it so the conversation flow goes, yeah, you need a human now. Let's get you to an agent.
Ah, man. I'm going to have to talk to you about what kind of tricks I can use to make that happen faster.
Speak to someone, speak to someone, speak to someone three times.
Operator. Over and over. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. Distraction overcome. What were we talking about again? Something about Star Citizen.
If it was 5 years ago, the character missions, now this is the right time. Get people invested. Get people on and playing. People aren't going to log on and play for, a Miles Eckhart mission, a Vaughn mission, as good as they are. And I've always enjoyed them because I'm the sort of person that reads the conversations, reads the lore, likes to make notes and go, right. I'll add that to the list of things that one day I might actually speak about. And then comes time to speak. But now is the time to do what they are doing. I honestly think that. I mean, we've already gone over pros and cons of doing what they're doing, but now is the time to do this hopefully not a large chunk of the team are dedicated just to this, and that split of having those working on the other stuff is going on just as much, so that we're not waiting years and years, or we get to the end of this storyline and all we've got is another storyline. We need those dynamic events. We need our Siege of Orison. We need our things like that coming in and out just to keep things fresh. And as much as these chapters will keep things fresh, realistically at the moment, there's not much diversity in what you're doing. Go here, get this box. Go here, kill this. And that's the same for any game or any MMO. It's either a fetch quest or a kill quest. But if we had scanning, if we had hacking, all of these things that are on the horizon at some point in time, even the repair stuff, that would be something different. Go here, repair this panel. Like the salvage missions in Pyro at the minute, where it's literally go to a settlement, salvage one teeny tiny nasal strip of a reclaimer panel, and there you go, you're done. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. I think I can agree with that. It's good to develop the story out like this. But man, it really would help, because you could also build the faction relationship through assigning these mission givers to factions. And that would probably, like, if Clovis Darnley was the Hurston, or I guess it would be Constantine Hurston was the Hurston faction representative, we'd probably feel a lot more tied into that part of the game. But I think you're right about them working on both. I mean, like you said earlier, they love to split into teams, but also they've been talking about mission givers on like the monthly reports, and I think at CitizenCon. So I think they've got plans behind the scenes, but I hope that they come back with different missions than what they have right now.
Yeah. Like we know this stuff is on the horizon, and just hopefully we get it sooner than later, because people are going to get... People who aren't invested in the story of what's going on right now will get bored very quickly. They'll log on, they'll do exactly what I did, even though it's just because I did it so much on PTU that I was just laser focused on getting it out of the way so I can carry on doing what I do in the PU normally. But they'll come on, they'll log on, they'll try their hardest to get the rewards as soon as possible, and then they'll disappear again.
Yeah.
But if you've got those new gameplay, or not necessarily gameplay loops, but those new missions, narrative or not, if there's something new and fresh for them to do and not just the same contracts, the same events with a different name, we're not at that point yet, but it's not gonna take long because of how limited they are in what they can offer at the moment. People will get bored.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
And that's kind of their overall goal, it seems like, this year, is making sure people don't get bored. It's just a matter of, is the content going to be good enough versus the features that they have to give up to push it faster?
Yeah.
As far as the narrative is going, there is some... The reception of it has been mixed overall in the community, but it generally, I think, has pissed some people off with like the datapad thing that happened, with the switch up with the slicers. You want to talk a little bit about how this narrative is being delivered and how maybe CIG could improve the delivery and communication around it? And the story?
Yeah. So, the datapad thing. As great an idea as it was, it didn't land whatsoever. It was the first... it wasn't necessarily the first time they did it, but it was the first chapter of this whole narrative. And little ARG things in games, they work because you get one person find it, they tell a friend, they tell another, and eventually the community knows about it. But that didn't happen because the datapads were bugged, and that's the problem. Because I remember seeing those datapads, and I'm sure if I had a look through my screenshot archive, I would have screenshotted what was on them, because I tend to do that, because I don't read it in the moment because I'm normally getting shot. But a lot of them couldn't be picked up, and I think that was the problem. And I mean, there's still datapads now that can't be picked up. dotted
Yeah.
around like distribution centers and things like that. They could still very well be those data pads.
So here's a question I have then, because with a lot of the people, the criticism is using data pads. Do you think that was a problem? If you could have picked them up, would it have been okay?
So, yes. And just for the same reason that when people do ARGs in games, as I said, it has that domino effect of one person reads it, they go to Reddit, they post it. People in different organizations go, oh, that's pretty cool. They share it in their Discords and it spirals out. And it is one of those things of not everyone's going to find it. But that's the point. That didn't happen. Could they have done it differently? Absolutely. Can they do a lot of things differently with these stories? Yes. We shouldn't need to get information from Spectrum about it.
That's true. That's how I felt about this whole freaking game, man. Like, for the longest time, if there was an event going on in the game, you would have to go to the website to find out. At least now they put it in the launcher, and it looks like they're going to put it in the game soon. But it's always, Star Citizen has always been what feels like a tech demo based around the game, which is the website.
Yeah, there are certain people that don't mind doing homework when they're playing a game. And that's
Eve
why...
players.
Yeah, hello. 13 years clean of Eve, I think now.
Congrats. I'm kidding.
Thank you.
No hate on Eve.
Oh, it's completely different to when I played anyway. But yeah, it's one of those things if you shouldn't need to do homework. And the perfect example is the paints, the rewards from doing the first two chapters together. Nobody knew what those paints were, so they couldn't make an informed decision of who to back unless they had seen the data mined images for the first, I think it was 24 hours. It was the second day of the event that they updated the main thread for Fight for Pyro with actual images. I think I might be over exaggerating. It might have been the same day, but a little bit later on in the evening or something like that. But beforehand, if you wanted to play as soon as the event went live, you needed to choose a side. And that determined what type of paint you got. So if you were just in it for the paints, you had to go to data miners.
Yeah.
And that's not good. That should have been clear and present in the selection of the contract and things like that. And there was, I'm trying to remember back now, was there a, once you pick a side, that's it? I can't remember.
No, you could always switch. Because I'd taken the mission a couple times where, like, if you start working down the rep of one side, you can switch to the other by taking a mission. I don't know how that factors into the event, though.
No, because once you started down one path for the priority missions, so you could still take the mercenary missions and things like that, but the priority missions you were locked in on
Okay.
the one faction or the one gang to get those paints. But I can't remember whether it said at the start, choose wisely or anything like that. Because that would have been the place to at least say about the paints.
What do you,
in some way.
What do you think of this idea of tricking the player base? I know it kind of falls into a category, I think, of game criticism that we've seen happen more in the last like 8 years or so, where people like really don't want moral decisions, or they don't want to feel like they're tricked into having to deal with their ethics in games. And I wonder how you feel, or what you think of them trying to use that as a narrative tool. So
interestingly enough, a couple of days ago, I don't know whether you watched Diary of a CEO or listened to Diary of a CEO.
No.
But Evie, who is a former Secret Service interrogator, she's one of the most couldn't give a people ever because of a mindset. And she said that people come up to me asking for tricks or how to trick people. And she turns around and says to them, how do you feel when you've been tricked? I'll teach you methods and techniques, but not cheap tricks. And that happened. So I was watching that the other day, and it was actually one of the CIG community team that shared that podcast episode.
Oh.
And I was like, it was just so on the nose because loads of other stuff she said was actually really, really compelling, really good for psychology. But it was just so on the nose. How do you feel when you've been tricked? So I can fully understand why people got rubbed the wrong way by the gleeful looks on the team's face in the ISC. I thought, oh no, don't do that. Don't do it. Don't do
Gotcha.
it. Yeah, a good old gotcha, which landed really badly because you didn't get anybody because no one knew in any way, shape, or form.
I think if the game was working, it would have been better received.
Yeah. If there was an easier way to digest or even a diegetic way to get that information or go, hang on a minute, like if there were voice lines and you could listen to the subtext going on when the person was speaking, would be way different because people don't read. Let's go back to that. As a conversational analyst, people don't read.
People don't
Please.
read. That's what.
That's
what we've learned over the last. Definitely. Absolutely.
And we're all guilty of it. We skim read as well. You fill in words, you fill in letters. That's why those little tricks work where you swap letters around, but you still read the word perfectly fine.
Half of the problems I have in Star Citizen would probably be solved by me just reading. Like when I don't have a helmet on, if I just like look down at the little control thing, it'd probably tell me the button to put the helmet on. I wouldn't die most of the time, but sorry, I'm a dumb squishy human, and we do that kind of thing. And we need a little bit of help. I'm sure some people are shouting at their screens, no, we don't do that. But like voice lines can make a huge difference. Working really AI can make a huge difference. And luckily, I think that we can see from 4.1 that they have that in mind. Yeah.
I mean, they're trying. We know this. But it's how quickly they reach the end point is what will be the deciding factor. People will always... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask, how would you change the way that they're presenting this narrative?
Honestly, picture-in-picture, voice lines.
That's
more, it. Just that more that information in the verse, not on Spectrum.
Yeah.
The newsstand at Area 18, a Spectrum newsstand exists and is there and has a news ticker. Why aren't we using that? Especially for the new loading screen that is the Gazette. Why is that not an actual physical board outside that newsstand?
Yeah, I like that.
We know they can do the dynamic text and things like that. Yes, it eats up VRAM. Who needs VRAM when you've got 500 frames per second that don't actually exist?
We're all
still
working
got the same latency.
We're all working our way towards supercomputers just to run it anyways. So
that's fine.
That's I keep going back to that freaking AMD presentation because they had like all these games on there that you would know and expect, and they were all running like very well, like average 90 frames per second at native 4K, and they were super proud. And at the very end of the list is Star Citizen, average 59 frames per second, which is still great, I think, for most people playing Star Citizen, but it's just funny how the game needs much optimization.
I have an entirely different problem with the current gen GPUs, though, and the frames per second fallacy.
Yeah, I think everyone does now. I think it's
made up.
So far
it doesn't affect your latency. It's just, people know that FPS is a thing. Let's focus on that.
Yeah,
and it just make it up with DLSS. That's not how you improve tech. That's how you fudge numbers.
Money talks.
Here we go.
We're going to change the podcast up.
Sorry.
So let's talk about, we've been talking a little bit about the strategy that they've been doing so far and the narrative and the bug fixing, but there is still somewhat of the same development that they've been following. People think that just because they're talking about content doesn't mean we're not getting, or means we're not getting any features. Not to say we're getting features in 4.1, but there are still some noteworthy things coming up in the future. I'd like to talk about that now. The rest of this strategy, kind of what they're doing beyond. What do you think of 4.1 so far from what we've seen?
So I want to know more about what they're doing with the Theatres of War assets because it's combined air and ground. I really hope it's not just a come here and PvP or come here and try and PvE and get PvP action. I know they're trying to get that through and they're trying to promote group play, but you can't promote group play only. You've got to have the options like we've had with the supply or die. There's got to be options for different play styles when you introduce a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just focus on the one because you'll have an entire subset annoyed. But that said, the whole they're not doing features, the end is nigh. No, they're doing features. They've said this repeatedly. It's just the focus is on fixes. Features are still coming, but the priority is shifted.
You think anything interesting is going to make its way into 4.1 features wise?
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's when we'll get the handyman stuff back in. Not necessarily interesting, but it's a step towards repair. And as they said on the roadmap, everybody's now going, well, all of that stuff has now vanished and it's now in 1.0. That's so that they can bring it into 4.1 or 4.2, things like that. It's just sat there. They've already said in the roadmap roundup, just because it's in 1.0 doesn't mean it's not coming sooner. It's just somewhere for it to sit, and that needs to be part of 1.0.
Nobody's going to look at that column and think, yeah, they'll release all of those features in one update. It's just not going to happen.
Oh, some people will.
I'd like to introduce you to 4.0, my friends. No. Do you think that charge and drain will come back in with the handyman stuff? Or not back in, but do you think that'll make it?
I hope so. I hope all the little things that didn't stick the landing in 4.0 in the preview or in 0.1, I hope that they come back in with 4.1. Because, I mean, if you have got, terminally addicted to issue cancel, following reports and contributing, you get the notifications when things get marked as fixed.
Huh.
And I'm just going to use this opportunity to say, just because it says fixed on issue cancel does not mean it's going to be in the build that you're playing on PTU.
That just means fixed on their build.
It just means they've got a fix that they think is fixed in a build, not in the one that's active.
Do you think that they need to change that?
Oh, yeah. That's an entirely different podcast, the problems with the issue cancel. I've submitted countless feedback and things like that about issue cancel before to Please Fix and Zolarix and the team, just because it's unnecessary in some ways. I'm not going to
priorities and
for
stuff.
Yeah,
I get you. Yeah.
I've already derailed this podcast enough with random things. That's how my brain works. I'm sorry.
Mine was okay. Your job was me, so I'll take the responsibility for that one. The Hathor group stuff is interesting because yes, it came out of left field. If you don't know, it's a Theaters of War asset, but it's also a new kind of location, right? It's a mining space station. I don't think we have any of those outside of Arena Commander.
No, so it is brand new. It's got the fully tubular ring around it, and the ground locations are new to anybody that didn't see Theaters of War. I can't remember now. I know Theaters of War was shown off at Sitcom.
Yes.
I think the only audience that got to play it was
the people who were there.
Evocati. Was it just Evocati?
Oh no,
and people
they did
that
it online, huh?
Yeah, I can't remember. I wasn't part of Evocati when Theaters of War was tested. So I'm not breaching any NDA. I'm just trying to think. Was it?
I do not know, but I know that it didn't make it very far, at least from our perspective.
I'm glad of that, to be honest, because they were working on too many different games at once, essentially.
That's fair.
That's what was happening there, because they were working on all these different things, but they were all technically different games. So, I like the fact that we're getting the Hathor stuff in, because they had already developed the lore as well, so that all exists. The assets existed. They just need to be brought up to par with today's fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from that, how involved with Hathor we get. do they become a new faction that we get to gain
They
rep for
better
and
be.
maybe get something different?
Yeah, see, that's where if my biggest hope is that 4.1 is a really good look at what they think content should be. And that is
Yeah.
the new locations, which is like more than, let's say, 8 locations, right? The space station and like some amount of outposts. New mission giver, which is a narrative tie into that location, a new faction, which represents the mission giver and gives you reputation to progress through, and then missions that correspond to that faction through what they're based around. So mining,
Yeah.
refining, and cargo transport for this. If this drop, if 4.1 comes in with each of those things, I think that is a winning strategy for them in terms of their quarterly updates, as long as maybe we get a couple features here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. If we get everything you just listed, then that's how you stick the landing on bringing in something new to do, making sure that it's as complete as possible that you can then build from, rather than just bringing it in dribs and drabs, which
Yeah.
is how we've seen a lot of things over the years, and it's just the nature of the beast. But if you're not having a year of feature focus, when those new features come in, make sure they're at least a little bit more complete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I keep telling myself, if nothing is in the EPTU, I don't expect it within the next 5 months. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm expecting, is they'll have it in the EPTU, just testing for months and months and months to try and get it figured out before they bring it into live.
I really hope so. And I'm sure there will be, those panic meetings where they go, no, we need to bring it in now. We need to bring it in now. Rush it. Needs to happen. But hopefully they don't.
Well,
And we get it.
that
when it needs to arrive.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to kind of our closing segment, I guess, which is really just, is this working? Is this going to work? Does it feel like it's working? Is a content focused 4.1 and content focused 4.1 point whatever, and whatever their monthly patches look like, in the way that they've been doing this so far, if they can build on it and improve it and keep it going throughout the year, do you think that this can support the game like their feature first push they've been doing, and just trying to keep people excited and hyped and spending money? Do you think this can still carry Star Citizen forward as it needs to, and Squadron? The bigger question.
Yeah, I really do think it can, as long as they do exactly what we've just been talking about, is bring them in a little bit more complete than we would normally expect, have the different options in for different people straight away, so that you're catering to the different play styles that you want to foster. So they want to foster all of these play styles.
Yeah.
You need to cater to them with each major release. Like 402, if we have any more between now and 4.1, they're just like subversion fixie things, so little bits can come in. But if you're putting out a minor version, so the 0.1, then it needs to have a little bit more meat on the bone.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be suitable for more than just one group of people. Because how many feature patches are we going to get this year? Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. 3 at the most, if they are focusing, if they have switch focus and they want to dedicate the time for it to be an EPTU.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have an EPTU yet, so the time is running out for this year. We'll see what happens. I think now that they've got 403 out the door, we'll start seeing traction. Sorry, 402. I said 403. Yeah.
Do you think that do you think Squadron is still really hurting the development of this game? Do you think that they are not able to do what they want to do this year because of Squadron 42?
Right. That's the perfect question for something that I have been saying since I first heard the words, this is going to be the year of playability. They want to get the persistent universe ready for Squadron 42 players. That's why they're not focusing on features, is my own personal belief.
I think you're spot on.
They care. They absolutely care about the PU. They care about Squadron 42. They want to have a successful launch of Squadron to funnel people into Star Citizen for ongoing revenue, ongoing players, expanding even more of the universe and things like that.
Hmm.
But they need to have it in a stable state for Squadron 42's launch. And if they're confident that Squadron 42 is coming out next year, it's no longer 2 years away, it's less than that.
Don't tempt them, man.
If they're confident in that, then they need to get the PU ready. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So I'm not saying that they were disingenuous in saying that it's the year of playability by any stretch. It is, but for the reason of they might be concerned about Squadron players coming to the PU and going, what the hell is this?
Yeah, that would be awful if it went. I mean, imagine if Squadron came out in 2020 and people had the like.
Oh no!
It's actually kind of funny because we all wanted Squadron to come out, but
something to do, and times where we're all caged.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig into there. Do you think though that this idea is? I mean, it all comes back to funding. That's what's going to mean if this is possible or not. And do you think that this can create as much funds as they have in previous years, where it was all features and all ships? It wasn't all ships, but that's what you hear a lot. Can they keep the momentum?
As a dolphin myself, whales be whaling. I mean, we'll see, maybe by the end of H1, we'll see what the financials are looking like, because there's always the diligent people who make the bar graphs of funding compared to previous years. And we'll see what it's like after Invictus, I think. See whether it's working or not.
Yeah.
Because, again, we haven't had the time. We're 2 patches in. We're about to be 3 months in, or the start of the 3rd month in. We haven't had the time to see if it's going to work or not. I think that's the sort of conversation to have slap bang in the middle of the year, after Invictus has happened, so you can see how that is compared to previous years when it's been feature rich. And we've probably got 4.1 by then, at a guess.
Yeah, but yeah, Kraken, I'm a YouTuber, dude. We like to jump the gun.
Oh, I know.
Asking questions before they're ready to be asked.
Oh, I know. There's a question I'm going to ask that I've made sure not to ask it on your podcast, because then it's your content.
All right, you just got to let me know when you ask it. So now you built up all the anticipation.
It's to do with narrative, because as I said, I read.
See, this is one of those psychology tips he learned from that person he was talking about earlier on how to get people to come over to his channel. It's a little advertisement there. No, it's when we do wrap this up though, I do want you guys to go over and check out his channel because he makes good content. But I do think that this question of the funding and whether this will work is a very interesting one, and it's going to be interesting to watch it play out, because I always am of the mindset that this game performs best in terms of funding when it plays best. It doesn't matter if there are big new features. Generally, if people can get into the game and experience what it is, they're more open to spending money. But at the same time, the excitement of engineering or control surfaces or Maelstrom or even like AI functioning can be something that holds people back. So I don't know which direction it's going to go, but from what I've seen, I believe this year they're already ahead on funding.
I haven't seen. I generally don't look at funding trackers until until Q1.
So they start popping up all over Reddit?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm always on Spectrum as well. I've always got SC testing chat, and Evocati chats up on
pour one out to you, man. That's good for you.
That's because people need help.
That is true. That is true. That's good to help. Yeah. Okay, I know I said I was going to finish up on that question. I have one more thing I want to ask you about, because we kind of talked about this a little bit. They have some big features coming out. Engineering is one of them. Reputation and the way that it works with factions has been one that we've been waiting for a long time. And instead of just putting it in the game, they've kind of wrapped this whole narrative around it. Do you think that they're going to start to do that more, and that's their content focus, is like they're bringing in features and changes to the game, but they're kind of masking it in a narrative so it's a little more interesting? Or is that
I
just
hope
a
so.
one-off, you think?
No, I really hope so. I hope that we get features introduced alongside narrative, or just a narrative entry to things. Because for the people that enjoy that, like myself, because as I said, I read, and people like Astro, who just go, this is a thing. Let's have a look at this thing for 5 minutes while everybody else dashes off. Bringing those in at the same time as the features is part of that whole catering to your different audiences. So you bring in the new features for the people that just want to play a game. If you bring it in a narrative way as well, the people that sit there and read lore for 5 minutes while everybody else is out getting shot are sat there reading the lore and then go, where did everybody go?
That's fair. Yeah, I hope they stick to that too. I think it's pretty cool, and it'll also make the features look cooler. It'll be a lot cooler to have some kind of event that focuses on showcasing Maelstrom than just jumping into the game and shooting your ship a couple times.
But it's to go back to the Squadron gameplay from last year, the Rich Tire gameplay footage.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that your introduction to the game is fully lived and there's a narrative to it. So, like when he got kicked out into EVA for the tutorial for how to EVA, things like that.
Yeah.
Things just happening in that way. There's a reason for it to happen. Like tabletop, like D&D. There's no point just throwing something down because there's got to be a reason for it to be there. Because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So if you're introducing a new member of the party, they come with a little story as why they're joining the party.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in a new massive feature like engineering, Maelstrom, give us something that focuses on that as part of the story.
Basically,
like
narrative
ship munching, repair. Yeah.
Narrative can fit anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it ties things into the universe rather than just being, we've added a new thing to a tech demo.
And
it makes it more tangible.
And hopefully that is, hopefully they continue to improve at that, as that seems to be the direction they're going. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining me for this talk. This is, I think, a good look at the strategy of 2025, where Star Citizen is headed with the content updates, the playability, the bug fixes, all that jazz, and a solid look into the everyday work of MrKraken. Thank you for joining us. If you could let the folks know where they can find your own content. You're reading content. Gross. He reads.
No, thank you very much for having me. So I'm at MrKraken on YouTube, at Real MrKraken everywhere else. But I also post my infographics on Reddit and the RSI Community Hub, as well as my virtual photography. But if you're looking for bug workarounds, I try my best to keep up with the most annoying ones and get them posted.
And we need a lot of them. I keep them bookmarked for that reason. Thanks everybody for joining us for this podcast. As always, if you like the podcast but don't need to watch it, you can find us on audio platforms or watch on YouTube if you like to see pretty faces. Otherwise, this has been the Launch Sequence Podcast, coming up on episode 200. No idea what we're going to do for that, but it should be fun. Thank you everybody for coming to this one, and I'll see you all next week.